Hi, this is Ernie. Hi. Once again, we bring you some glimpses of the world. This time, we want to show you Ukraine, an intriguing country with turbulent but fascinating history and culture, but which we haven't heard much. Shrouded in mystery and isolation for many years, ruled by the Russian Empire for 2 centuries, then by the Communist Soviet Union or USSR for another 70 years. They finally gained their independence in December 1991 when the communist regime collapsed and the Soviet Union dissolved. Unfortunately, a new turmoil started when Russia re-invaded southern Ukraine, annexing the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. Just a year before we visited in 2015. Though war was raging in the southeast border of Ukraine, life went on seemingly normal to the rest of the country, and so we took the chance and traveled the country but avoiding the eastern border. Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe, about the size of Texas, though a little smaller. Its vast agricultural land and rich fertile soil makes them one of the world's largest producer and exporter of grain, and is the breadbasket of Europe. So join us in this entrancing adventure journey to this mysterious land of Eastern Slavs. We started our trip from the southern border of Belarus in the city of Brest, which is just 48 kilometers from the northwest border of Ukraine. From there, we drove south 270 kilometers to the city of Lviv to get a feel of the countryside and landscape of northwestern Ukraine. It took us 4.5 hours to reach the city center of Lviv, the capital of western Ukraine. Lviv is an ancient city founded in the 13th century by the Polish king Danilo. It is the most important cultural center of Ukraine, known as the center of arts, literature, music, theater, ballet, and other performing arts.
City Council decided to remove asphalt and to bring back a cobblestone.
Bring back the cobblestone.
Yeah, these cobblestones are our historical heritage.
The central cityscape, especially the famous city square or market square, also known as Rynok Square, is dotted with remains of old churches from the medieval period and an ensemble of architectural historic buildings of different styles reflecting various European influences of different periods with Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, and classical styles as well as Art Nouveau. As such, the Rynok City Square has been listed in the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1996. The City Hall is a 14th century medieval town hall. It is a 4-story building with a patio and a clock tower that rises prominently in the center of the city. It is included in the UNESCO World Heritage Site as part of the historic city center ensemble. This pharmacy museum in Lviv is a working drugstore and pharmacy museum at the same time. It is the oldest existing pharmacy in Lviv. The museum consists of 16 rooms exhibiting antique pharmaceutical appliances, pharmacy-related library, and a reconstructed alchemy workshop. This drugstore was established in 1735 in this same building. This Armenian Cathedral of Assumption of Mary is located in the Old Town, built in 1363. It is used jointly by the Armenian Catholic Church and Armenian Apostolic Church. Andrei Sheptetsky was the former Metropolitan Catholic Archbishop from 1901 to 1944. This Assumption Church and Bell Tower was constructed in 1344, located in the Old Town. It is an outstanding monument of Renaissance architecture. Lithuanian Cemetery is the oldest cemetery in Lviv, dating back to 1565.
For example, activity of person when he was alive. For example, you should even to enforce your imagination, but it's possible just to understand.
Lithuanian Cemetery is one of the best known and most celebrated burial grounds or necropolis in Europe for its many artistic monuments. This sprawling cemetery is older than the famous graveyards of Paris and London, and the most beautiful in Eastern Europe. It has a park-like landscape with 2 centuries worth of funerary monuments. There are more than 300,000 graves here. Now let us move on and learn something about the Ukrainian rural life. The Shevchenkivsky High Ethno Park is an open-air museum of folk architecture and rural life, located 2.8 miles east of the city center of Lviv. This open-air museum gives an overview of the ethnographic history and culture of Western Ukraine dating back to the 18th century, with replicas of authentic wooden churches, traditional houses, and thatched roof huts built in the 1700s, with narrow streets, giving a genuine atmosphere of Western Ukraine. There are water mills, sawmills, windmills, etc. The Ethno Park also hosts workshops on weaving, bread and butter making, as well as hosts celebration as Easter and Christmas, folk fairs, and other events. Let's visit the centuries-old castles of Lviv, known as the Golden Horseshoe, and these are the Zolokiv Castle, the Pechersk Castle, and the Olesko Castle, all within short driving distance of 80 kilometers east of the city center of Lviv. The Zolokiv Castle It's a fortified bastion-type castle built in 1634 by Jakub Sobieski, a Polish nobleman. This castle has an intriguing history. For 3 centuries, it has changed ownership several times. It has been attacked and occupied by the Turkish army and the Ottomans. It served as a prison and torture chamber by the Soviets, used as a headquarters by the Nazi Germans, and then was a vocational school in the 1950s. Now it has been taken over by the Lviv Art Gallery, who developed it into a museum of history and culture. Pechersk Castle, built in 1635, is a residential palace castle, heavily fortified fortress. The structure of this massive castle was built with brick and stone that resisted frequent attacks by the Cossacks, Tartars, and the Turkish army during the 17th century. This castle has been neglected and poorly maintained that it now looks like a haunted house. And indeed, it has a ghostly history that a mysterious lady in white that resides in the basement wanders around the castle. The only castle in Ukraine certified to have a ghost. Legend has it that the previous owner killed his wife in a fit of jealousy and have her embedded in the walls of the castle. Olesko is the last castle we are visiting. It is one of the oldest in Ukraine. This giant stone castle was built in the 14th century on or about 1327. This beautiful medieval structure, nestled on top of a small hill, was occupied by the Polish king Casimir III in 1366. It was the birthplace of the later Polish king Jan Solecki III in 1629. In the 15th century, it served as a hiding place for the local people of Olesko from frequent raids of Tatars and Turkish army, as the fortress proved to be quite impregnable and resisted the attacks. For the next 5 centuries, it has been used as a residence, as a boarding school, a monastery, an agricultural school, and a military depot. Now, it is managed by the Lviv Art Gallery as a museum who oversee and manage the large collection of original furniture and wooden sculptures from the 14th to the 19th century. Now let us visit Chernobyl, site of the disastrous nuclear explosion accident on April 26, 1986, considered to be the worst nuclear disaster in history. The massive steam explosion resulted in an open-air graphite fire 400 times the amount of radiation released by the Hiroshima bomb in Japan. The damaged nuclear reactor number 4 was hurriedly covered or entombed with a metal and concrete sarcophagus in May 1986 to contain the high level of radiation being released from the uranium and plutonium. It was completed in 6 months. After 30 years, the covering sarcophagus was starting to deteriorate. A new confinement structure or shelter was designed to cover both the damaged nuclear reactor and the existing sarcophagus. Work began in 2007 and completed in 2018 through the cooperative efforts and funding by a consortium of 30 countries, costing 2.5 billion euros. The structure is 350 feet high and 840 feet wide. 3 kilometers north of Chernobyl is the atomic city of Pripyat, the city of nuclear scientists, a city built to house the scientists, engineers, technicians, employees, and various workers of the 4 nuclear plants in Chernobyl, numbering some 50,000 people as of April 1986. All were totally evacuated 24 hours after the blast, using some 1,500 buses and trucks, never to return again to their radiation-contaminated homes. Kyiv is the capital and largest city of Ukraine. It is a beautiful and vibrant city with an impressive cityscape of a mixture of well-preserved historical structures, parks, and landscape with modernity, especially with its architecture that has given the city a polished modern look. This Golden Gate is one of the landmarks that has been preserved, built in the 11th century as the main gate and entryway that leads to the old walled city. It is now a museum. Above the passage is a church built next to the gate for the heavenly protection of the city. Its golden dome is a landmark of the city.
The street is called, in front of us, is called Basseina or Pool Street, streets of Kyiv, as there was a special that experience in Israel.
This is Constitution Square, where the Parliament building is located. It is a neoclassical Soviet architecture from Stalin era. It was built in 1939. St Sophia Square is a huge plaza located in the historic center of the city. It is a picturesque landscape adorned by the monuments of Bogdan Khmelnytsky and Saint Olna. At one end of the square can be seen the ornate bell tower of St Sophia Cathedral, a 1,000-year-old architectural monument listed as the first UNESCO World Heritage Site in Ukraine. At the opposite end of the square is this beautiful St. Michael's Golden Dome Cathedral, another impressive architectural monument built in the 12th century. Its exterior sky blue color is topped with 7 bright golden domes. Independence Square is the central square of Kyiv. Since its independence in 1991, it has been the traditional place for demonstrations, protest campaigns, political rallies, and non-political displays and events, hunger strikes, etc. Now let us get to the most interesting part of the city, the Kyiv Pechersk-Lavra, also known as the Kyiv Monastery of the Caves Complex. Founded in the 11th century on or about 1051 by the Greek Saint Anthony and his follower Theodosius. Together with other monks, they dug out a series of caves or catacombs where these reclusive monks lived, studied, and worship, located at the Pechersk district of Kyiv. It has become the center of Orthodox Christianity in Eastern Europe. This historic monastery is one of the 7 wonders of Kyiv. It has been inscribed in the UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 1990. It is an active functioning monastery with 100 monks in residence. The main monument of this cave monastery complex, just to mention a few, is the Dormition Cathedral, the Great Bell Tower, the Trinity Gate Church, the Church of All Saints, the Refectory Church, and several others. St. Andrew's Cathedral is another magnificent monument, considered one of the most beautiful Baroque buildings in Europe, constructed in 1747. Legend has it that the Apostle St. Andrew erected the cross on this current location and prophesied that this place would someday be a great city and a cradle of Christianity in this Slavic land. The site of the church is now called Andrew's Hill, with an excellent vantage point for a breathtaking view of Kyiv and the surrounding area. It is now also a museum and part of the National Sanctuary as a landmark of cultural heritage. Rodinamat or Motherland Monument stands proudly at the top of a hill 102 meters high to honor the Ukraine heroes of World War II. Underneath the monument is the World War II Museum Complex. On the same hill is the People's Friendship Arch Monument, a steel rainbow to celebrate the 1500th anniversary of the city of Kyiv. Mariinsky or Mariinsky Park is a beautiful, quiet and shady wooded park with flower gardens located uphill in the Pechersk district overlooking the Dnipro River, founded in 1874. Bordered on the west by the Constitution Square, the Parliament Building, and the Mariinsky Palace, a ceremonial residence of the President of Ukraine. Holodomor means death by hunger, a genocide disguised as famine by the Soviet USSR from 1931 to 1933 to quash Ukrainian resistance to Soviet policy of collective farming. 8 million Ukrainians died of starvation in a peacetime catastrophe, though no physical basis for famine existed in Ukraine at that time. Babi Yar is a ravine in the outskirts of Kyiv where mass killing of civilians was carried out by the Nazi Germans in 1941. Some 100,000 people were killed in this ravine, one of the largest massacres in World War II. Perhy Folk Village is an outdoor museum of folk architecture and life of Ukraine. There are folk architecture scattered over a scenic rolling hills with 17th and 18th century wooded cottages and churches. The oldest church was built in 1742. Local volunteers and artisans like this pottery maker demonstrate and show their craft to the public. Orthodox priests walk around and bless the village. The participants and artisans selling their wares dress in their old traditional style clothes to demonstrate use of everyday items. There are potters, weavers, blacksmiths, and others selling and or demonstrating ancient craft. This is a country fair and open-air celebration dedicated to the different folk holidays. There are an ensemble of authentic wooden windmills on a scenic landscape. There are also theatrical and dance performances.
You have a choice of hanging around here or walk up to the windmill and then come back.
І майстри ваші прекрасні.
Ми хотіли б запросити на сцену першим Василя Сиріка, щоб він вів, що ж він хотів нам своєю творчістю показати.
Путешествие в среду обитания. Благодарим вас. Это было такое музыкальное вступление. А сейчас еще просит слово.
Сотворение мира на Украине. Это дело, которым мы все занимаемся, нам могут помочь сотворить его.
The Dnipro River is the longest in Ukraine, 981 kilometers within the country. It divides the city of Kyiv in half. The width of the river within the city is 1.5 kilometers with a depth of 9 to 12 meters. The banks are connected with 7 bridges, and we will show you 3 of them. After that pleasurable river cruise, let us now drive down south to the charming city of Odessa, located at the southernmost tip of Ukraine, directly on the Black Sea, to a driving distance of 297 miles, which will take at least 6 to 7 hours of careful, safe driving. So here we go. Odessa is a beautiful and historic city. It has the largest seaport and is the jewel of the Black Sea. It is a popular summer destination not only for Ukrainians but also of Europe because of its nice beaches.
Gavanaya 7. Pardon?
Did you walk up the stair there?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Potomkin Stairs is a giant stairway, the best known symbol of Odessa. This serves as a formal entrance into the city from the direction of the sea. Odessa City Garden is the oldest and most beautiful park created in 1803 in the heart of the old city along the famous Deribasovsky Street. It is a small park with shady trees surrounded by lovely restaurants, bar, confectionaries, cafes with outside seating. And nearby is the renowned Odessa Opera House, the greatest treasure of Odessa and a true pearl of European architecture of the 20th century. It is one of the 5 most beautiful theaters in the world. The facade is decorated with Italian Baroque style. The beauty and grandeur of this theater is eye-catching. Its interior is impressive and luxuriously decorated. The Posad Hotel and Gallery is also along this famous Deribasovsky Street in the center of the city. It is an unusually built hotel in the 19th century. It was the biggest and most famous hotel at that time period, with its modern innovations with electricity, elevators, and bathhouse. It also doubled as a galleria, boutique, and modern shopping mall. It has an amazing architectural design of a mixture of Baroque and Moorish style. Deribasovsky Street is a vibrant main street of Odessa, 1 kilometer long, pedestrian cobbled walkway. It is a popular place where people gather, sit around and stroll in the afternoon along its tree-shaded walkway. there are wonderful architecture of the surrounding buildings. Besides the restaurants, cafes and bar, there are also mobile food car vendors.
Где трепещут осины, где с дубов колдунов облетает листва на поляне траву. Зайцы в полночь косили, и летом напевали странные слова. А нам все равно, а нам все равно.
Preobrazhensky Orthodox Cathedral is the biggest and foremost church in Odessa, founded in 1794, almost as old as the city itself. It is also known as the Holy Transfiguration Cathedral, destroyed by the Soviets in 1936 but rebuilt in 1999, then consecrated in 2003. The interior is lined with marble. The cathedral bells is now controlled by electronic device capable of 99 melodies. Well, folks, this brings to a close our amazing journey to this once mysterious Eastern Slavic country, invaded and controlled by several European countries and the Russian Tsarist Empire for over 2 centuries, then hidden behind the Iron Curtain of the Soviet communists for another 70 years. We hope you enjoyed this short travelogue. See you on our next trip.